All right, Bryan Clayton. Thanks for hopping on the Witness Business Podcast. How are we doing today?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on. This is great.
Absolutely. One thing we like to start off most of our interviews with is this question. What would you say is the worst job you've ever had?
Ooh, the worst job I ever had. Well, so I've never actually had a job. I've been very fortunate to work for myself my whole life, which was a really lucky break. I started mowing grass in high school as a way to make extra cash, and just stuck with that lawn mowing business and growing it, and then eventually selling it, and then starting GreenPal, my current business. So I never had a boss. But the worst gig I ever had running my first landscaping business I begged McDonald's to become a customer of mine. I mean, literally begged them for years. And I promised the store manager of one of the locations that we would clean the drive-through every time we mowed the grass. And so we would clean all the cigarette butts and out of the drive-through, because our thought process was, our value proposition was, we're not just going to mow your grass. We feel like we can help you sell more extra value meals. And we feel like if the drive-through is clean, maybe that'll help. And so literally every time I would go mow the yard there, I would get on my hands and knees with a 5-gallon bucket and just pick up cigarette butts, chewing gum, all kinds of crap out of the drive-through, putting it into the bucket. Did that every week for years, but ultimately signed them to a regional contract, multi-six-figure contract. So I guess it was the right move at the right time.
Well, Kyle and I could have used you back in the day. 'Cause we both were McDonald's employees once upon a time.
Oh, wow.
And
you know what I'm saying?
That was one of our like go home, what do you call them? Go home chores. You got to go outside and sweep up around the drive-through. And
Yeah.
we could have used
You would think it wouldn't be that bad, but then you get out there and you're like, what are people doing?
People are just emptying their car in the parking lot.
Yeah, like they're emptying like their dip cups and stuff. And you're like, oh, here was the place for that?
That's one thing, man, running that type of business and being in kind of on the front lines of a service business like that. I have literally never littered in my life after doing that work. It's like you will never litter. You shouldn't litter, but you will like pick up litter. I've picked up so much trash. And so, I think everybody should work that kind of job at some
It's
point
a
in their
uniquely
life.
painful way to have that ingrained in you.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, so McDonald's, kind of the segue, I guess, into our conversation today of like how, sort of how this all came to be. So today you run GreenPal, which it sounds like is an app that connects lawn service companies to people needing lawn service. But that all started way back, so we kind of want to get into the beginning story here. So can you tell us first and foremost how you started in lawn care, like kind of what your background is? Did you go to school, like, and so on and so forth, that led you to GreenPal today?
Yeah, it started off like I was saying earlier. I just needed a way to get some cash. My parents, they would buy me the $20 soccer cleats. But I didn't want the $20 soccer cleats. I wanted the $100 soccer
nice
cleats.
ones, right?
Yeah. And so my dad said, hey, the neighbors need somebody to mow their yard. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll just do that. And luckily, like, that clicked. I thought, man, I can buy the things I want to buy if I just go find more of these. And so I was 15 years old and passed out flyers all over the neighborhood and had like 10 customers and within a couple days, and never looked back. Just stuck with that little lawn mowing business through high school, through college, and then graduated college. And I thought, man, I'm gonna have to go take a job with this business degree, but I'm gonna take a pay cut, because I was at that point, I had 2 or 3 helpers, and I thought, okay, well, maybe I can take what I learned in business school and apply it to this landscaping industry, and made a little business plan, ended up building it into a real company over about a 15-year period of time, getting it to over 150 employees, over 8 figures a year in sales. And then that business was bought by a national company in the space. And then after that, took about a year off. And then I thought, okay, what am I going to do now?
You didn't stick around once it was purchased.
They wanted me to help with the transition. And so that was about 6 months. And then there was like an earn out that was 5 years after the fact, but they didn't want me there every day. And so I was kind of like cut loose, and I thought I was going to live the life of a capitalist, like somebody that just does investments and does deals and things of that sort. And that got boring really quick. And I learned that I was wired to want to be a part of a project, a mission. I wanted to build something again. And I thought it'd be cool to be a tech entrepreneur. Why couldn't I do that? And it was very much like naivete as an asset. I didn't really know what that meant, how hard that was going to be, but the idea that there should be an app where you should order a lawn mowing service was one that I had all along, ever since I first took an Uber. And the moment I took an Uber in like 2011 in San Francisco, I was there for a conference, and I thought, this is magical. Somebody needs to build this for this little industry that I know. So I had that idea in my head, and so I just decided to go ahead and do it in 2014. And it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, but I'm glad that I started it and never looked back, because every year that I started this business, I became a new person, and I evolved into a whole new person, acquiring skills and things that I had never been exposed to. And that's one of the funnest things about building a business, is that you evolve and grow along the way.
That's kind of
I have like 15 questions.
Yeah,
now, but go ahead.
I mean, I do too. But I was going to say, that's kind of the story we hear a lot on this show, is that ignorance is bliss, sort of. Like, you go into something that you have no business going into because you're like, it can't be that hard, right? And then you find out it is.
It wasn't that hard.
But what were some of those hurdles you encountered initially? I mean, building an app from scratch. In 2014, have you, before AI?
Well, let's say, actually, going back one step, like the first company, like what was it like that first time?
Sure. Yeah. Let's
and
go
then
there.
and then you're stepping, I guess, secondarily into an industry that you understand, but with a methodology that you don't, that being tech. So
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
All business is hard. Every single business is tough. There is no easy business. And so the first business was challenging in its own ways. And the second company, GreenPal, has been challenging, but in different ways. And so building and scaling and selling the first company, which doesn't happen a lot in the landscaping business, you don't see many 8-figure exits. That was like a very challenging journey. And it was very much like, nobody teaches you how to be a founder. Nobody teaches you how to be an entrepreneur. Nobody teaches you how to be a leader. You have to kind of trial and error your way through these things and do them wrong, and then try to figure out how to do them right. And that's how building that business was. And then exiting that business took 2 years to get that business acquired. And there was a lot of lessons learned along the way of how do you build a business that you can sell. And so after selling that business, I thought I knew that like there was everything to know about building and selling a business. And then I started GreenPal, and it was like nothing applied. Very little applied from one journey to the next. Some things did, the basics of taking care of customers and the basics of building a small team, some of those things did. But the one thing that caught me off guard that nobody had prepared me for was that there's a big difference between building a business, a traditional business, versus inventing something brand new that does not exist. And those two things are almost unrelated. If you are going to go, say, build a construction company or a home building business or a home painting business or a dry cleaning business, it doesn't matter. Like 80-20, like a lot of those things are like the same. But if you want to invent a brand new product that nobody knows to use, nobody's ever heard of, nobody knows how to use, nobody really knows that they need it when they need it, that's like 1,000 times harder. And that's kind of how building GreenPal was. It was like, if you build it, they will not come. And so you have to like learn that, okay, the building of the product is hard, but actually it's the distribution of the product and getting it into the hands of people when they need it. That's actually hard. And educating the masses that this thing exists is a lot harder than you think. And it's a good thing that I didn't know any of that when I got started, or else I never would have done it. And so, like you said, that ignorance is bliss, and it's good that you don't know everything that lay in front of you, or else you would never do these things.
So did you have to hire like a whole marketing team, or what was your strategy to get this app, this product in front of people and make them realize, like, hey, I know you've done it the way you do it forever, but now there's a new, better way?
Yeah, it's like, that's exactly how you think you would approach it. And that's just how I thought I would approach it. It's like, okay, we're going to build the app, and then we're going to sprinkle some marketing on it. build a team to market it. And it's like, that's exactly the wrong way to do it. It's like you can't just innovate on the product and innovate on the solution. You have to also innovate on the growth and distribution of it. So it's not something that you build and then go buy marketing for to distribute. You have to bake the distribution into what it is. And some really good examples of this, back in the old days, if you remember, like when Dropbox first came out, you remember you were sharing links with your friends to get them to use Dropbox, and you got like 5 gigs for free or something. That's an example of what I'm talking about, like growth baked into the product. And that's how we had to grow GreenPal. We had to bake into the actual product hooks and mechanics for it to grow. And so things along the lines of
you get one customer, and that may lead to 3 more customers because they're incentivized to then go and share.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want people to use it, be early adopters of it, and then you want it to grow and spread laterally from there. You can't just go buy Facebook ads or buy TV ads or buy even Google pay-per-click ads, because the economics will bleed you out. You don't have the money to spend on those sorts of things. And so that's how, like, building and scaling the thing from 0 users to our first goal was 100 people to use the damn thing. I just want 100 people to use this on a weekly basis, and I'm not going to worry about anything else but that. And that took a year, and it was very humbling. and so then after that, it was like, okay, now we need 500. And we just kept focusing on that number, the number of people using it per week. And now we have 300,000 people using it every week. We want 1 million people to use it every week. And so we're very much doing the same things today, 10 years in, that we were doing then. It's just the numbers are bigger.
Yeah. What was the hardest, coming from blue collar, being a landscaper yourself, or lawn care professional, was there like a mindset shift that took place when you're going from a blue collar industry and you're applying, like you said, you're applying your business acumen that you acquired at school to your company, but ultimately, like, you're a landscaper and you may tell other landscapers what to do, but you're a landscaper and now you're a tech guy. Like, what was that?
I think Steve's getting at there's not necessarily the landscaper to tech guru pipeline.
Yeah, there's not a direct funnel typically.
Yeah.
So what was that mindset shift like for you, or how did you have to reframe your thinking in order to pivot into basically a whole new industry? I mean, it's landscaping, but it is an entirely different beast.
Yeah, totally. It's so like I mentioned earlier, the challenging thing is inventing something new. That's a whole nother paradigm of challenges you never even knew existed until you start doing it. And that makes it really hard. But one of the things that makes actually building a tech business delightful is that it's 100% systems driven. And so when you're running a traditional, in the trenches, blue collar business, a landscaping business, a construction business, even a restaurant, a lot of times as the proprietor, as the founder, as the owner, your life is like solving the same stupid 10 problems every day over and over again. And yeah, you try to build routines and systems and processes to automate those things, but you're very much bound by gravity, and you're very much you very much are never able to break away from those things. It's like you are always solving the same 10 problems week over week. And if you get really good at it, you can separate yourself, but it's really hard. In a tech-driven business, like what GreenPal is, a platform-driven business, there is a system solution for every single problem. And if you get to the nitty-gritty, the core of what is causing it, you can build a solution for it. So in our case, something that happens all the time is the case of the disappearing landscaper. Like, you hire a guy, they show up one time, and then they just drop off the face of the earth. And that's actually a big problem that GreenPal solves. And so in the olden days, when I was running a landscaping business, maybe the disappearing lawn technician, you would call him, hey, where you at? Oh, he got a DUI. Who's going to go bail him out? he quit. He worked to work for a competitor. Okay, let's go shake the tree. Let's go ask the people that work for us if we can get somebody else to fill in today. You just like very much like hand-to-hand combat solve that problem. Well, GreenPal, with thousands and thousands of transactions happening per hour, this problem occurs all the time. And so now we handle that in a system-driven manner in terms of we can predict if somebody is not going to show up on time. And we can say, okay, there is like a 70% probability that this person who got hired for 123 Main Street is not going to show up. So let's let 2 or 3 other people know to be on deck. If he doesn't, let's let them fill in. And that happens like on the fly, on the go from a system standpoint. And so you're no longer like leaving voicemails, rattling cages, dealing with these problems. You're building the systems to solve that problem. And that makes it a lot more fun. That makes it a lot more scalable. Makes it to where you can like touch more lives and solve more problems for more people. And that makes it more rewarding in that way.
I love the idea of in your previous company, you're basically running like a part-time detective agency. Like, where is this person?
Yeah.
Like constantly trying to seek out that guy.
I'm an actuary by day. I don't know if you know what that is. A lot of people don't. But it's basically probability, risk, and
totally.
I love that the more data you have, the better you can predict behavior in a big population. I can't tell you what's going to happen to you. Can't tell you when you're going to die, but I can tell you about how many people are going to die out of 1 million people over this span, but I can't pinpoint individuals. But that's what that reminds me of, is the more and more data you have, the more you can be like, yeah, there's a 70% chance this guy's not going to show up. I can't tell you if this guy's going to show up or not, but I can tell you of this pool of 1,000 service techs that about 30 of them aren't going to show up, or however many that shakes out to
Totally,
be. So.
totally. And by the way, a mistake that a lot of tech founders make is trying to start off with like this conversation we're having now. When we started GreenPal, it was very much similar to how I ran my landscaping business. It was spreadsheets, it was phone calls, it was text messages, it was voicemails. It was hand cranking the workflows, almost like a Wizard of Oz style, like behind the curtain, like making the magic happen in a way, but in like a hand-to-hand combat way. But then going through those cycles and then understanding what the systems are to automate them and make them run smoother is how we got to where we are today. And so little by little, you solve these problems that are happening over and over again from a system standpoint, but you still have to solve them like in a hand-to-hand combat way when you start off with. A lot of tech founders try to skip that because it's not fun. It's like demoralizing and quite frankly demeaning. And it's not like glamorous. And so a lot of founders try to skip that and try to go to the systems standpoint, and they don't know what systems to build. And so then they build crap that nobody wants. So you can't skip that. You have to go through that and then build systems around that.
It sounds like you said, you kind of sat around, thought about maybe being a venture capitalist for a little while, tried it out, didn't love it. I guess I'm trying to think of how to frame my question, but it's ultimately like, what is the why behind this? I know you've built it into a really successful thing, but in order to grind through that first year or two of building to just 100 customers, and I feel like as somebody building something new, it would be easy to get frustrated and just say, you know what, maybe it's not. After a year of trying and only getting to 100 customers, it'd be easy to say, you know what, maybe the world doesn't want this. Maybe it doesn't need this. Maybe they like the way that it's always been done. So what was the why that kind of kicked you in the butt and kept you going when it was hard getting it off the ground?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And so first thing I'll say is if the market is telling you that nobody wants this, listen. Don't build something that nobody wants, and just because you think you're going to bend the world to your way. You really need to look for those signals of somebody telling you that this matters. And so for us, that was important to me. I wanted to know that what we are building matters, and what we are building is important, and what we are building is helping people. And so it's really hard to get jazzed up about solving a problem for a consumer that's a nice to have, that's like a convenience. Like pushing a button and getting somebody to mow your yard is a nice convenience. Yeah, sure, there's some stories around people facing fines from the city and GreenPal got them out of a jam, or single mothers that, you know, the man is no longer in the house, not mowing the yard, and they don't know what to do. They discover GreenPal and it solves their problem. Those are cool stories. But why we do what we do, and what we really get excited about, and why I get out of bed every morning is the small business owner who's just getting started, who doesn't know where to start. Like they got bills to pay. They've got credit card debt they're trying to pay off, or they're trying to make a down payment on a house. And GreenPal is the bridge that helps them get there. It helps get them their first 100 customers, helps them getting 6 figures a year, take home. Like that's why we do what we do. And so in the early days, the first 500 service providers had my cell phone number, and I would talk to them every single day, 7 days a week, coaching them on how to run a lawn mowing business and how to use GreenPal to do it. And that gave me the exposure of what we were building did matter, because I mean, story after story, you know, there was one guy who just got discharged from the military and could not get a job. Even though he had all of this like experience, he could not get a job. None of that poured it over into the private marketplace. And so he bought a crappy lawnmower and discovered our app. And so I was talking to him like every other day, sometimes every day on how to run his lawn mowing business. And I saw him like go from nothing to more money than he was making in the military, and then investing in rental property. And I think like 5 years later, he quit mowing yards and had rental property all over Nashville, Tennessee. And so that was a fun like journey to watch. And like what we had built was part of that. It helped make that guy's life better. Though that's why we do what we do. That's our why, I guess you could say.
So how did you go about negotiating some of those initial partnerships, and then also the partnerships that continue to develop to date? Because you're providing the value proposition to the lawn care company by giving them so much exposure. Then how does it work for you to earn off of their sales that they then make?
Yeah, it's something that we had to get right when we first got started. So that was one of the benefits that we had, was that I had 15 years of experience in the industry. So I kind of knew what that value proposition needed to be, what the pain points were as a service provider, what were the problems we needed to solve, things around getting new customers, organizing your route, a CRM, marketing automation, all of these like systems no lawn guy has. And so building those systems in a tailored way to help them was something that we were able to kind of start on second base with and speak their language. Like these were some of the things that did port from the first business to the second when building GreenPal. And the value proposition then was, hey, you just show up when you're supposed to, we'll take care of the rest. And we did it all by hand. And then now we do it all with systems. And so if they're not making money, we're not making money, because we take a transaction fee off of every lawn that they do. And so it can range anywhere from 5 to 10% depending on the volume that they're doing. And we encourage them to add that to their quote when they're submitting pricing for their customers. And so it very much is one that, like, if lawn care services are making more money, GreenPal makes money, and vice versa. If they're not prosperous, then GreenPal won't win, and that's how we like to keep it aligned. It's somebody once said, "Show me the incentives, and I'll show you the results." That's how we think about it. We want to make sure that we're incentivizing lawn care services to make more money, and that's how we make money.
And just thinking practically about it, you basically were coming in and probably absorbing the line item of that business for the SEO marketing, because you're providing such a niche market benefit. Like, hey, anybody who's interested in this type of service, that's all we do. That's all we traffic in. So put that money that you would have spent on this into us, and it's mutually beneficial.
Yeah, even further down I guess you could say down the food chain. Like the lawn care service that even knows what SEO marketing is, may or may not be a good fit for GreenPal, but it's the service provider that's like 2 or 3 tiers under them, which is like, hey, I have a pickup truck I've got a lawnmower. I want to mow 100 yards this week. I don't even know where to start. And then you say, oh, you should do SEO marketing. And they would say, I don't even know what that is. And so here is the platform for you. It's GreenPal. You just plug in and you'll get as many customers as you want. All of your route is organized for you in one place. It's a business in a box.
I want to, if you'll indulge me, kind of go back a little bit to the sale of your previous company. A couple questions surrounding that. The lead one being, how did you know that you wanted to get out at that time, or what made you think, hey, it's okay to sell? Because I know there are some people that listen in that, I would say that more often than not, we have people who are sitting on the edge of getting out and doing something, but we also have other entrepreneurs who are listening, who have a company, and they may be on the verge of thinking about getting out of selling. So how did you know that it was time? And you had indicated some lessons that you learned along the way through that process. So how did you know it was time, and what did you learn as a part of that?
Yeah, I think I had built that business as like a lifestyle business, one that I had never intended on selling. And that is not the way to go about building a business that you intend to sell. You should very much build it in an intentional way that you do intend to sell. And there's a book called Built to Sell that's really good. And you should read that book like 5 times because if you want to sell your business, it's going to be an intentional thing. And so for me, I kind of did it the wrong way. And so I was pouring my heart and soul into the company until one day I realized that like I had hit a plateau from my personal growth. I was no longer evolving and growing alongside the business, because it wasn't that I had like conquered it or anything, but it was very much no longer challenging me in a way that I was enjoying. And I didn't really realize I was enjoying it, but I was being fulfilled by the journey of having to take on new challenges and grow and take on and learn new skills. And that had kind of plateaued, and I had gotten discontent. And I thought, okay, well, I need to create the space for me to do something else. And so the first step is to explore an exit, of this company. And that took 2 years. From the moment I had that notion to the moment I got a deal done was a little over 2 years. And so you should be very intentional with how you think about this. If you ever want to think about selling your business, you should be running a 5-year plan of what that looks like and doing the things you need to be doing today, because 99.9% of small businesses are not in a position to be acquired. Mine certainly wasn't when I thought I could sell it. I had to reverse engineer a lot of these things. And so you should really think about starting that process now and doing the things you need to be doing now to get it in a position where it could be acquired.
Can you give us just a couple of those? Like, what does that look like? Because, you said it took 2 years. So was that like getting your books in a good place, or getting your, I don't know, taxes? Like, I don't know what goes into.
Yeah, no, your intuition is correct. It's all of those things and probably like 50 more. So the first thing is mindset. Most small business owners dream of selling their business when they are burnt out. They just like this, man, God, I am cooked. I don't want to run this business anymore, and I am burnt out. Somebody buy this from me. And nobody is going to buy your basket of problems. You will never, it's almost like dating. Like, you will never like find your soulmate, and you will never find your wife from a point of like desperation and like, oh, somebody please, like, please be my girlfriend. Like, you will never sell your business from that position either.
Smell it on you from a mile away.
Yeah, exactly. It ain't gonna happen. You need to be in a position of, I love running this business, and this business is so profitable, and it's running so smooth. I can take a month off and go to Cabo and come back, and it's doing better than it was when I left. And my team is great. I love my customers, and life is good. And then somebody comes and buys the business. It's not from a standpoint of, oh, this sucks. I hate this. My bank balance. I can't make payroll. I hate my customers. I hate my employees. Somebody please save me. Trying to sell your business in that type of environment is just going to make problems even worse. So that's the first thing. Like, get to a point where you love it and it's running so smooth that it could run without you, and then you could explore selling it. So that's like That's like the first place you need to get to. The next place is like just tactically the way you run a business you intend to sell is very different. You have to run it strictly from the spreadsheet. And what I mean by that is like a lot of times as a small business owner, you do things that that aren't necessarily like P&L driven. You might sponsor a baseball team in your community because you feel like it's the right thing to do. You might give an employee a loan for a down payment on a house because they've been with you for 10 years and they're like part of the family. You might repaint the fence outside the shop just because you have pride in how the business should look. You might buy everybody new uniforms, and you might buy the name brand. You know, you might buy them the Carhartt jacket instead of the instead of the Walmart knockoff. Like these are all just little things, and they add up. And so let's say they add up to a number. Let's say they add up to, I don't know, $500,000. Well, then when you go to sell that business, that $500,000 could be the difference between viability and not viability, because that's coming right off of your EBITDA. And guess what? That $500,000 is you can times that by 4, 5, 6, or 7 in terms of your end result, because they're going to give you a multiple on your net profit essentially. And so if you intend to sell that business, you are running it against a strict, tight budget, and you are running it from the spreadsheet as though you don't even see it, as though you might think about a stock or something. And that's the mentality you have to have if you ever dream of selling your small business.
So you're telling us that you can't just like write off any expenses as depreciation? That's what you're telling us?
Well, a lot of times, you might, and so that's a really good example. You might write off your wife's car. You might write off that trip you took to Puerto Rico because you did have a conversation with a investor down there or something. You might write off your home office, and you might do all of these things that are kind of perks of running a small business. But guess what? When it comes time to sell that business, you've just shot yourself in the foot.
I think that's not something I would have thought of. So that's a great word of caution.
Nobody told me this stuff either, so don't feel bad. I did all of the above. Like every example I just gave you were mistakes that I had personally made.
And real quick, before it gets away from us, the book that Bryan referenced, Built to Sell, is by John Warrillow, if anybody's looking to read that.
He has a really good podcast too.
Just as an addendum to my previous question, you indicated that you negotiate this 2-year-long sale, and then you are, for all intents and purposes, cut loose. What advice would you give to somebody, who is exiting their business or thinking about exiting their business on how to make a graceful exit? Because I imagine that would be difficult given the amount of sweat equity that you put into it to build it to that point.
Yeah, that was something that when I sold my landscaping company and then started building GreenPal that nobody told me about. And this is not something you should really worry about if you're trying to sell your business, but you should be aware of it. This is like level 9 of Super Mario Brothers, and if you're trying to sell your business, you're on level 1. So don't worry about Bowser. Deal with Bowser when you get to him, but something you are going to deal with that I didn't anticipate is literally a personal like psychology thing. It's very weird, especially when you run a business for over 10 years and you've gotten it to a point where you could sell it. Odds are you have poured your heart and soul into it. And very much is probably the possibility that a lot of your personal identity is wrapped up in it as well. That's why it's successful. You literally for a decade or more have been all over everything all the time, 7 days a week, 365, and that's why you got it to a point where it could be acquired. And so a lot of your personal, I guess you could say like your own self-worth is tied up in it. And so and then one day that's gone. Like that's not there anymore. And now what? Like, who are you? Why does it matter? You no longer have these people that rely on you, and there's no longer a reason to get out of bed at 6 a.m. and there's no longer a reason to be reading these sorts of books or listening to these podcasts because you're no longer in the game. And that's a weird thing nobody told me about. And so I kind of had to go through that. It took me like a year to figure that out. And that's why I started GreenPal. Honestly, it was because I wanted to be fulfilled in that way again. But don't really worry about that. Cross that bridge when you get there, because you got enough to worry about if you're thinking about selling your business.
Well, ever since I heard one of our previous entrepreneurs come on and talk about like the idea of new levels, new devils, I
Yeah.
want to try and provide as much of an all-encompassing look as we can, because, you know, we have people who listen in that are in all different levels of business ownership. So the one time I don't ask, or the one time I don't have an opportunity to ask, and then I don't take it, I'd be kicking myself. But go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I appreciate the advice of just like don't worry about it unless you need to worry about it. Like Bowser is down the road, and I think that's kind of the purpose of us starting this podcast, was because you hear a lot of podcasts like these gurus talking about, oh, how do you scale from 100 million to 1 billion? And I'm like, how do you get to $1? Like, let's start there. So I appreciate the, like, just get off the couch and like do it, get it started, and think about Bowser when you need to think about Bowser 9 levels down the road. But I wanted to ask.
I really like that.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, because that's important to me as well, and how I run my business. I think it's important to be learning from people who are one level ahead of you. For instance, like I listened to a podcast with Bryan Clayton the other day, the founder of Airbnb, and he's running $100 billion organization. Bryan Clayton might as well like be on Mars compared to where I am. We're trying to close in on 100 million. He's at 100 billion. I need to be listening to the interview with the guy or gal who's at 200 million and how they got there. And so I think it's important to be consuming information from somebody who's just one level ahead of you. Maybe you're just getting started. You want to be listening to a podcast that's niche to your industry, if somebody talking about doing $1 million a year. Like, you need to be learning about the next level of the game and focusing all of your intensity on getting through that level of the video game that you're in, and not worrying about anything else. And because I've been guilty of this before, trying to, like, it's almost like the same thing as just flat out entertainment, but you've seduced yourself into thinking that you're working in your business, when in fact you're just entertaining yourself. And so that's important to be called out.
Well, I was going to ask, what's one piece of advice you'd have to the young or aspiring entrepreneur? But that might be it.
Yeah, it's seek out mentorship, and I don't mean like hitting somebody out on LinkedIn and like saying, "Hey, can I pick your brain?" Like, nobody has time for that. What I mean is like asynchronous mentorship, in terms of like all of the stuff they're putting out there, podcast interviews, YouTube interviews, fireside chats at conferences, blog posts, seeking out that content of like one step ahead of where you're at in the game, consuming all of that, get to where they're at, and then rinse and repeat. I guess that's the best tactical advice I can give.
Well, Kyle, any other burning questions before we get to our last segment here?
No, go ahead, Steve.
So we've got a fairly new segment. We've done it a few episodes now. It's called What in the World? It's kind of things going on in the world that are interesting. It might make you say, what in the world? Today's segment, it kind of applies loosely. I mean, AI, robotics, all of that is sort of all the rage. It's all anybody can talk about in the news and tech. And as I'm curious, as like you start seeing robotics in lawn mowing and landscaping, how do you see like AI robots and smart tech as that moves into lawn care industry? Do you see that changing the game, or how long do you think it'll take before it really shapes or reshapes the lawn care industry? What are your thoughts around all that?
Yeah, I think from like a kinetic standpoint, in terms of the actual unit, the robot executing the lawn mowing services, I don't know. Sometimes I think we're 5 years away, and other times I think we're 20 years away. It'll definitely happen at some point, but there's just so much nuance and detail around what goes into this service. I almost think you'll have the maid from the Jetsons, Rosie. I think you'll have her inside the house before you'll have fully autonomous spinning blades outside the house, or maybe they'll happen at the same time. A lot of times these things like happen slow and then they happen really quick. We're still at least 5 years away from that, maybe longer. Now, what will happen in our industry in terms of AI is just much better, smoother operations, like on the ground, in terms of fewer delays, fewer mispriced jobs, less downtime navigating from stop to stop. All of these things that go into running a lawn care business, we're able to improve them with AI and make them run faster, cheaper, smoother, more predictable. So that is going to happen, and that's now. But in terms of like the robot literally doing every aspect 100% end to end of the lawn mowing and landscaping maintenance, I think we're still at least 5 to 10 years away.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to come up with like an intelligent response, and I don't know. There are moments in time where I'm like talking to ChatGPT and I'm like, man, this is the best thing. Like, this is the future is now. And then sometimes I get a response from ChatGPT and I'm like, we got some time. We got
Yes. Yeah.
Steve's the AI guy. I'm like, how can we have less AI? It makes me feel like the old man on my front lawn.
Yeah. Well, Kyle, I'm not where you're at. I'm probably closer to where Steve's at. But I'll tell you this, it's like the Bill Gates quote is that we tend to overestimate what will happen in a year and underestimate what will happen in 10 years. And so I think 10 years looks very different than today. I think 1 year, not much. Yeah. And so I think that's where we're at. And I'm in and out of some AI tool every hour of every day. And the way I think about it is, there was this movie with Russell Crowe called A Beautiful Mind, and he played this scientist who was schizophrenic, and like he had these three.
Spoiler alert.
Great movie.
Come on.
If you hadn't seen it, it was like 25 years ago. But he had like these three figments of his imagination that followed him around everywhere, and he talked with them and literally interacted with them, but only he could see them. And that's how I think about AI, man. I have an MIT data scientist right here. I've got a Harvard MBA right here. I've got a chief of legal that went to Cornell right here, and maybe 3 others. And literally, like, I just ping them all day long with things. And man, I'm telling you, like, I was a C student, but I am operating way above my punching weight now. And so I love it. I don't want to go back.
I guess I should clarify my position. I'm not anti-AI inherently. I just feel like listening to people talk about it and seeing the public discourse.
Oh yeah, it's annoying.
I think it's becoming a crutch that's going to degrade normal human behavior, function skills, critical thinking skills. And things like that. It's like, if it wants to come up with a plan to do something efficiently, cool, sounds great. If it wants to supplement something that I can't do well or I can't think through, okay, maybe. But just, the idea of that we're pumping and pouring so much money into something that I don't think we really fully understand. We definitely don't understand the implications of it as a society yet, I would say.
Totally.
Based on those things, that's why I'm like, I'm a little more dubious. But Steve's like, ChatGPT, what should I say to my wife about this? I'm not.
But I will say, I mean, one thing I appreciate about our show is we have, I guess, what I would call, in some sense of the word, creators come on our show. Like, you are the creator of an app, of a lawn care company. We have content creators come on our show all the time. And I think when AI takes over the our innate ability to create something, when it gets away from us and we start putting that ability or that trust into a computer, essentially, that's where I don't love it. Like, I think AI can enhance, and it should, now that it exists. Like, sure, let's use it to enhance, but to ground zero create something, I don't know that I love it.
It sucks at that.
People love little short snippets. It's an enhancement, not a replacement. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Steve Jobs said the MacBook Air or Pro was a bicycle for the mind, and maybe AI is like a rocket ship for the mind. You know, it can really, like, Steve, I would never even be able to begin to do the mathematical computations that go into like doing regression analysis and what it means to be an actuary. But with AI, I can maybe get in the game. You know, I can get in there, and that was something that was never before possible with me. Like, I barely passed stats in college, and I think it's because the professor felt sorry for me. And so, with literally like this browser in my window, I can run those kinds of computations and make sense of raw data in a way that I never could before. And so for me, it's very much like a rocket ship for my mediocre brain to help me like play at a different level.
So you're getting on to Chat GPT or something. Hey, I've done an actuarial analysis and it's not looking good for you. I'm just
Yeah. No, I love this conversation. I mean, shoot, we could talk about the AI part all day.
I have one more piece, Steve,
Sure,
here
go
real
for
quick
it.
before we disembark. Brian, you kind of teased in our pre-show conversation, you know, that you're building towards something in 26. Do you kind of want to tease that for the audience, what you're looking for? Because, you know, you're one of our early 2026 guests here. And I want to be intentional about asking, you know, what some of people's goals are in 26.
Yeah, for us, it's closing the gap between where we are now and 1 million people using the app every week. And so the way we think about it is, going back to Brian Chesky and this interview I listened to with him on the other day, he talks about this in terms of at Airbnb, they've got the 1 to 5 star experience. We're all familiar with this system, but he said, what does a 10-star experience look like? Well, you would get picked up at the airport in a limo, and like you would go to like a private dinner at the best restaurant, and like your room would be a lot better than you thought it was. And like all of these things that like went into a 10-star experience. And so I'm thinking about this with GreenPal. It's like, how to create a 10-star experience, and put another way, how do we create a magical experience with just getting this simple chore done at your house? And then also as a lawn care pro, making a living in this industry, how do we close the gap between the non-glamorous life of running a lawn mowing business and what could be magical about that? And that's what we're thinking about for 2026 is how do we create an experience so good that people are like, damn, how'd they do that? Like, you ever order an Uber and it's like sitting out front? That happens like every now and then. It's like, damn, how'd they do that? That's what we're gunning for in 2026.
Tell me where you're getting those Ubers, because it's not happening for me.
Every once in a while it happens.
Well, Brian, we appreciate the conversation, man. This has been awesome. I think it's cool to see how you've not just built a company, but built multiple companies, not just like dominated an industry, but now sort of dominated 2 industries. It's cool to get the sort of the ground zero. How did you do this? How did you get this out of your head? I mean, we love founder stories. Yours is a great one. I'm excited to share this episode. So we just greatly appreciate all the insights for hanging out with us today.
Well, Steve and Kyle, thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and I enjoyed our conversation.
Here's to 1 million users.
Right on.